Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to another All Hands on Deck. I'm Katherine McBean, and I'm speaking slightly easier now. Had a procedure done and a little bit more to go, but nearly there. So, wanted to have a quick chat today and a catch up again. This isn't the big one, but there's so much kind of firing off at the moment that I want to do a little catch up. So, we obviously had the horrific knife attacks on the children in the Southport area. It's devastating to think that this is a reality that's happening in our country, that innocent children are being killed by a psychotic person. There's no other way to describe it. It's psychotic and evil. But always worth remembering that MK Ultra is real. I'm not suggesting that's the case at this point, but I do find it very, very odd that there is so few details that have been given out about the suspect, the murderer, the perpetrator of these crimes. And the government have been very quiet in coming forward, using the fact that he's 17 years old. And that's why they've not given out any details. Well, I'm sorry, that's not good enough. What it's allowed to happen is rumor to circulate. And there's been a lot of, I hate to use the term, but I'm not going to use it, incorrect information that's been going out, and certainly some dubious information that hasn't actually been true. And as a result of that, we saw reactions kicking off last night, and things got really quite violent and out of hand. And I want this message to go to people on the left and on the right. There's a lot we need to bear in mind here. It's a big boiling pot of anger and frustration that isn't just something new. This has been building for decades and decades. Now, it's a complicated situation, depending on how you feel. For me, it's a complicated situation. I look back at our history and how we, as the West, have reacted to the Middle East and how we've treated them. And I have brought this up before. And whilst a lot of people want to forget that because of what they see happening in front of them right now, I think it is well worth learning from history, remembering history, and looking at how we got to this point. So we did some horrific things to the Middle East, the West, the UK. We have to hold our hands up, and historically we've done some horrific things. Now, don't get me wrong, if you go back far enough, everything's a murky mess. Everyone's done horrific things. But in terms of modern history, the West are culpable for so much of the disruption across the world, so much of the evil that's taken place. And we have to own that. Sorry, but we have to own that. And we need to be looking at the likes of Blair and Campbell for what we see unraveling now. They really kicked this stuff off, and it was all based on lies. We know that now. A couple of warmongers who caused or assisted in causing the death of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. And those people have grown up knowing what the West did to them. And they've decided to move because of the state of their countries or potentially reprisal. And we don't know necessarily what that looks like. Now, I've worked alongside and had friends who are Muslims for a number of years, predominantly in the past. Where I live now, actually, there's not such a big Muslim community, but I had before. And I didn't meet one Muslim I didn't like. That was just the way it is. Some of them I didn't agree with, but they weren't what I'd suggest were bad people. But I know there are Muslim people out there who are more extreme in their views, and you could say the same about Judaism, Christianity, Sikhs. I don't tend to notice that so much, but you certainly could do that with the majority of religions and see that they're extremists on all fronts. Now, the Muslim extremism is probably going to be more prolific. I'm not an expert, but I would suggest it's likely to be more prolific because of historical actions that we've taken. And they're carrying that around if they lost all their grandparents, their parents, their brothers, their sisters, their cousins, because of things that our country did. How would you feel? Put yourself in their boots. How would you feel? Now, I'm not saying an eye for an eye is the way forward. For me, that isn't the way forward. I would lean more into Jesus's approach. That would be how I would do it. But you can understand, you have to be able to empathize on all fronts and not necessarily agree with it, but certainly seek a space where you can understand where they're coming from. Now, do not take me the wrong way. I am not up for multiculturalism, not at all. It's not something I personally think works, unless that those people are prepared to kind of assimilate into the cultural society that we have here historically. And I don't think we should be creating halal meat in this country. It doesn't work with our ethical positioning historically in terms of how we treat animals. And I don't believe we should be building more mosques or have special schools for Islam children or Jewish children or Sikh children. I just don't personally feel that works. We've got to be realistic. There's a bunch of these guys in this country from alternative faiths, countries, backgrounds. You know, they weren't necessarily born here, although generations since have been. And then we have to consider that as well. You can't just take all Muslim people, Sikh people, Jewish people, so forth, and boot them out the country. That isn't the right way. That isn't who we are. That isn't how it should be done. We have to ensure, and I'll get to the how-tos in a minute, but we have to ensure that all the illegal immigrants go first. First and foremost, get them out. They're costing us billions overall. It is costing us a fortune. And they're cutting back on heating, fuel support for elderly people. Are you shitting me? And we were happy to send so much foreign aid elsewhere, particularly for other countries to fight climate change. Huge money laundering operation. But it's costing us. So the illegal immigrants have to go first and foremost. And the clue is in the name, illegal. They're criminals. Get them out. I do not want my tax money paying for illegal immigrants in this country. Not a penny of it. Then we have to look, I believe, at the non-native people of the UK who are living on our benefit system. I think they should be given 3 months' notice. Your payments are stopping. And you've got 3 months. You either get jobs and fulfill your own financial obligation and give something back to this country, or you will be given, you will be exported. You will be going back to your place, your heritage, or your country, from your family's background. So I think that should be considered as well. But we do have to bear in mind there's many people from other countries, be it Sikh, Muslim, Jewish, lots of different people from lots of different nations, that have come here many, many, many years ago and have assimilated as much as is possible into the community and are key players within the community. And those people we need to be connecting with. Those are the people we need to be having conversations with. Those are the ones we need to be creating relationships with. Because just think about it logically, the vast majority of them are actually good people. They're genuinely good people. They get quietly living in their community. So I'm not talking about these gangs and these groups in the cities that come together and put their own culture first. And I understand them doing that, but don't do it in this country. Simple as that. It doesn't mean I don't respect your right to your culture. It doesn't mean I don't respect your right to your religious views. It doesn't mean I don't respect your rights to your history. None of that at all. But it doesn't, if you're not going to kind of assimilate with our culture, and you want to live here, then I think you need to look at going elsewhere. But we need to be talking together. Ultimately, the regular Muslim, the regular Jewish person, the regular Sikh, the regular whoever, and for whatever other nation, your regular Christian. Generally speaking, they're good people. Everyone just wants peace. Everyone wants to live side by side and get on well. These guys are not extremists. And these are the ones we need to be connecting with so they connect with their community and start having these conversations. They wouldn't like it if we tried to do it in their country. We all know that. We all know that. And as such, Europe's taken a battering, and we know why that's happened. Now, what we're seeing happen is the globalists are winning this at the moment. And the reason they're winning this part of it at the moment is because of the fact that we are reacting to each other and not focusing our eyes on where the problem is coming from. Government right now could remove us. This is the ECHR. I never remember what they call it now, but they could get us out of this situation very, very swiftly. We're not now part of the EU. We're not restricted in that way, and we could start mass deportations very, very quickly. They're choosing not to. They're choosing not to look at the core issues and deal with them head on. We know that. We know they're not going to do it. they're the ones spending our money on illegal immigrants, on sending money abroad to other countries, on allowing these faith issues to escalate without really decent diplomatic conversation, bringing people to the table and having those conversations and addressing and accepting the part we've played, the part they've played, how, two wrongs don't necessarily make a right. Actually, let's find our middle ground here. Let's find where we can connect and compromise. And these guys need to understand that we're taking our country back. Now, we can either work with them or we can work against them. And I would absolutely suggest working with them. And I think if we can have those conversations and we can put our hands up and we can say, hey, we were freaking wrong what we did to your country. We absolutely were wrong. We didn't personally make those decisions, and I personally was against all of it from day one. But we need to recognise the role we've played. But then they need to recognise that retaliation against us, a new generation or the next generation, isn't going to solve the problem. The problem comes from global governments and local governments to some degree. And that is where we should start. That is where we should be pointing our finger. We need to come together with these groups because the one way the globalists don't win is when the people unite. We know that. And people falling into this trap. I'm really sorry. I'm about to make myself very unpopular here. But if you're looking to people like Tommy Robinson, potentially Nigel Farage, I'm not sure kind of where he's sitting with things at the moment. But if you're looking towards these people solely for the answer, I think we're probably going the wrong direction because they don't bring unity. Certainly not yet. There's no unity taking place. We need to be having conversations, and it's very difficult to do without full exposure. So, where do the solutions come from? What does that look like? How do we move forward from here? Well, none of it's easy, but I would suggest communities connecting across the UK, people with the right attitude and empathy, but determination to save their country, need to reach out across the aisle, if you like, to other groups, be it through ethnic groups or societal groups in terms of economics, different colours, creeds, gender. Everyone needs to be reaching out and connecting with those, finding those genuine people, the authentic people, the decent people who do want to correct things, and bringing full exposure as you go. It's coming down the line. But the minute that we connect and start healing is the minute that we can start taking action together. And those within society who aren't here genuinely, who aren't here to assimilate, who aren't here to do good, they will soon be identified and people will know about them. And what you do is you just make those people very uncomfortable within your community. You don't connect with them. You don't have anything to do with them. The trouble we've got is, in reality, in order to expedite these people who aren't good people and who aren't here to become part of our culture or part of our nation, or certainly not support our nation, they need to go. Now, how do we do that as citizens? Well, without the control of government, that's very difficult to do. Now, how do we take government without all being arrested and everything else? Well, I came up with a plan a couple of years ago and I pitched it, and it was too early. And people, whilst they like the idea, you need numbers. You need numbers. Now, the problems that we have, a lot of them stem from the government. If you look at these bases where they're parking up illegal immigrants, we know the game plan. We know these aren't the good guys. What we need to do is ideally have a situation, we're not there yet, but soon enough, when enough people are figuring out that something ain't right here, is we need to coordinate. Now we can play the official game, or we can just take matters into our own hand. We know that the government have committed treason, and I do talk about the Labour government as well as the previous government when I say that. When I look at politics as a whole overall, the vast majority are either useless or completely corrupt. They all need to go. They all need to go, and we need to have a transitionary group come in to trigger a proper general election, take control of the electoral system, and make sure that it's not played with, and some sort of blockchain situation or something. I don't know, or just go back to paper to paper across the board and manual counting. And we're much better in the UK than other countries at doing that, but we could be better. And we need to coordinate, collaborate, and communicate with groups across the UK. So, all on the same day, several people, well, groups of people, very sensible, very calm, working within the law, create citizens arrests of MPs, any councillors that you know have and you're sure have committed treason or fraud. But certainly the central government needs to be shut down, and you arrest the senior players, MPs that you know have received information, for example, about the COVID thing, or you know are instigating something dubious in the background. At the same time, you have hordes of people queue up at regional and national TV centres and block the doors. The same with the newspapers, the same with any government office that is not listening to we the people, or who is complicit in either genocide or treason, or crimes against humanity, however you want to look at that. But we need core groups of people coming together to organise this. And so you shut down the media, you shut down everything else, you don't vandalise, you don't become violent, aggressive, you just hold the line and guard the gate. Places like DEFRA, the biolabs, really figure out where the potential threats come from, or those who have already caused harm, and just stop them going in and out. Just stop them going in and out. You could do a strike day across the UK, and somebody creates these are our demands, and we will not return to work until you meet these demands. But again, it has to be a numbers game. It doesn't work unless you've got the numbers. But we're getting close to that point now. We're getting close to that point. And unless we all come together, and this is where the things come into play. This is why you connect with the others in your area, whether they be different ethnicity groups, whether they be different color to you, whether if they're decent human beings, if they're generally decent human beings, then we need to connect with them and all move in the same direction. Mass non-compliance ends everything. You don't need the violence. Now, don't get me wrong. I absolutely understand why people are becoming agitated, why they're becoming irate. We see these things, these machete attacks, these things going on around us. The police are fundamentally effing useless overall. I shouldn't generalize, but overall. And governments certainly aren't going to do anything. So that then breeds intentionally. Remember, they're doing this all intentionally. That breeds vigilantism. And that's where things can get very, very aggressive. Now, I'm not saying don't step in as a member of the public if you see an atrocity about to be committed or potentially be committed and you feel very comfortable that you can deal with that situation. I probably would. I'm not the wisest on these things. If I see somebody doing so, I'm going to react in some way. But the last thing I want is anyone putting themselves in the line of threat. Don't ever put yourself in a position where you're going to get hurt unless you're defending children or someone very, very vulnerable. And then that's down to you as an individual to make that decision on what you do. But I know this is a little bit rambly, but I just want to get across these sort of key points that we are going to become reactionary on the back of their inaction. And they are doing this intentionally to cause division, distraction, and potentially some sort of civil war so they can bring in, whether it be a UN army, whether it be they're going to sort of try and bring in a martial law of some description, whether they're going to have more boots on the ground and where do those boots come from, stricter, harsher digital IDs, for example, more CCTV, all of that stuff. And we're potentially playing right into their hands. What we need to do is cut off the head of the snake. And I don't mean that in an aggressive sense, but understand what I mean. And that comes from the senior government. It comes from the NGO groups who have far more, undemocratic influence over how our country is run. And you need to look for those groups and work on that. When you've got Friends of Israel effectively funding a bunch of our MPs, you've got to question that. How undemocratic are they really here for our country first and foremost? You've got to question that. So you've got to look at those groups, and we can attack them in a non-physically violent way and be very, very smart about it, and take down those that are dictating how this runs. Take down those who are there with those that are conducting the orchestra. Those are the ones you go after, not each other. Again, granted, I understand that the police aren't doing much. There's really negative energy. Those babies were murdered. But since then, the confusion and anger has been escalated because we haven't received good reporting on the reality of the situation. So people are picking up on incorrect information and running with things, and it's escalating the situation. Stop, be calm, be sensible, think with a level head. Very hard when the emotions take over, and I get that. When I saw all those babies, I just, yeah, I was just devastated. I'm a mum. I mean, just can't even begin to imagine how those families feel. So I understand the anger. I understand the frustration. This should never, ever, ever have happened. But I still look to the government. I still look to the police to bring the answers, and we're getting neither from either. And as a result of that, people are going to take things into their own hand. If you're going to do that, just be smart about it. Just be smart about it. Smashing up police vans probably isn't the way forward. We've got a massive knife epidemic. You need to be applying pressure to your local police, your local MP, to all of the people in your local government. You need to be applying pressure. We can take a stand, but we have to do it together. We have to do it with numbers. It has to be universal. You can stop the council tax payments. You can take a strike day. You can go and shut down their ability to function. Shut it down. Not a violent, not aggressive, not damaging things. Just have the numbers at the door. What are they going to do if the police turn up to the BBC studios to let people in, and you've got 5,000 people blocking the entrances and exits so people can't get in? Not saying shut them in there, allow them out, but don't let people back in. Just don't allow them to function. Surely that's a really sensible way to grind this country to a halt and say, look, we'll bet the buttons press back on, but these are our demands, and we are the people of the UK. Now, I'm going to speak to the left here for a minute. You've heard what I've got to say, and you're all living in a very idealistic world where multiculturalism will work. Well, we've been just watching it roll out for a number of years now. It does not work. Now, that doesn't mean I'm sitting here saying Muslims are bad, Sikhs are bad, Jews are bad. I'm not suggesting that. What I'm suggesting is that naturally, by culture, we're not all the same. We're not all supposed to be the same. We shouldn't be celebrating being the same. We should celebrate our differences, but we do it in our own cultures. We used to go abroad to explore different cultures, to educate ourselves, to get the experience, to enjoy the differences and accept that we are different, and that's fine. But it doesn't mean you can't respect and understand and enjoy somebody else's culture on a holiday, for example, or on a trip. It doesn't mean that if people come here and they're happy to assimilate into our culture, that should be a difficult situation. They could be, if they're genuinely bringing something to this country in terms of their profession and what they can offer, then I don't, and they go through the legal routes, and they pay their own way. As long as those numbers are managed sensibly, bearing in mind we're a very small country with very crumbling infrastructure, and currently our economic position is bad, then we can have those conversations for sure. But hey, let's fix the situation here at the moment. And whilst we're paying millions or billions on flipping illegal immigrants very regularly, and we're sending billions abroad to other countries, that's your kids' futures. You're just happy for them to spaff away, just under the guise of, but I'm a good person. I want everyone to know I'm a good person. I love everybody. I want everyone to come together and live in harmony. Idealism has a place, but it's got to be practical as well. And that isn't practical. We're proving that our school structures are crumbling, and they can't cope with the amount of children that have come in recent years that don't speak the language. The parents don't speak the language. We're applying so much pressure to our education system that it's about to collapse. And I know that, having spoken with the local school, and the councils are spaffing money away. If you go through your local council's accounts, just to be really boring, you'll probably find that the vast majority of money is going to pay off their debt, interest on their debt, as well as being there to house local foreigners and foreigners coming to local communities and so forth. It's not actually going on our own infrastructure greatly. It's not really going on developing what we have here in our communities. And as such, it's not a practical solution, guys. You can be virtue signaling all you want. You crack on, go for it. You're not actually doing anyone any favors. You're not doing them any favors. You're not doing us any favors. And you're certainly not doing the people that you're trying to help any favors. Not at all. They're being put into a situation whereby they are going to become the victims if this carries on for much longer. So you've got to stop and think about that, and also be practical. Like I said, we're a small island. Our infrastructure's under collapse. Look at the state of the NHS. You think we can take more people in? Get a grip. Get a grip. It's really nice, the virtue signaling that you've got going on, but it's not going to work in reality. And if you don't see that now, maybe step back and look at the conversation from a distance until you understand a little bit more what reality looks like. But to go down the violence route, to go down the aggressive route, unless you're physically in front of somebody who is a threat to you or your community, then it really isn't the answer. What you need to be going is going to the police and saying, guys, what you doing? What you're doing? We've got kids running around here with machetes. You need to be sorting this out. You go to your local MP. We've got kids running around with machetes. You need to be sorting this out. You go and you go outside Parliament. You have massive protests and you block the doors. You say you're not coming in. You're not coming in until you commit to mass remigration and to making sure the police or the army or whoever we've got available in terms of military are shutting down these kids and arresting them who've got machetes. They're not all kids, some of them are adults, fully grown adults who've got machetes. You've got to be breaking down these crime groups that you've got across cities. You've got to be working harder to do that. We are underfunded, understaffed with some of the wrong people in positions at the moment. So we have to take a stand. Now, if anyone out there is remotely interested in a national stand, it's a non-compliance situation. I'm not talking aggression and violence here again. Then drop a note below, because I do think it is the time for these conversations. I do think it is a time that we say to other ethnic communities, look, if you've been here for ages, you're working, you're part of the community, you're not on the benefit system, you're trying to do the best for the UK, let's have a conversation. Let's talk. We need help from you to communicate with your communities and get them to understand, hey, you cannot come here and not try and assimilate into our culture. If you don't, we are not going to want you here. And things could start to look ugly if we can't start negotiating and having diplomatic conversations. But we can't offload them, the ones that will not be a part of our culture or certainly expect us to adopt their culture. We need them to be worked with in order for them to either understand it or move on, and certainly from the benefit system move on. But we can't do that until we have the right people in government, and we can't have the right people in government until we either have a general election or we have a very peaceful kind of revolution, if you like, or resolution, by having them stopped, just stopping them functioning. Stop them functioning. Block the doors. Don't let them in. Don't let them be there. If they played a part in genocide or crimes against humanity, is it time for a citizen's arrest? What do we do about the police? Where do we hold these people if the police aren't going to play ball? Do we then suggest we start arresting senior police personnel? It's all worth consideration, guys. It's all worth consideration. The dark side, if you like, they've got potentially plans that we aren't aware of what comes next. So our guard has to be up, but we do have to remember who the true enemy is. And predominantly that is the globalists. That are the ones who want to destroy us. All of us they don't give a shit what color you are. They don't care what gender you are. They don't care about any of that stuff. They want you destroyed. And we've got to remember we are all human beings. Don't get me wrong, some demons out there, but we are all human beings, and most people from different ethnicities are actually decent human beings. So let's start talking with each other. Stop doing this. The sensible ones, the ones who really don't want to see violence and aggression, connect with them and start asking those questions. Anyway, I've warbled on a little bit, but we need to be looking at solutions, not aggression, not frustration, because they've created a boiling pot. They create a boiling pot of emotions. And you've got all the people from the last 4 years who know what the truth looks like and becoming frustrated because we don't seem to be getting anywhere with it. It was always going to be a numbers game, always has been a numbers game, and it probably always will be a numbers game. So this is why I keep going about exposure. The sooner we wake more people up to the reality of the situation, you're going to have more people to play non-compliance, and the more people to play non-compliance, the bigger win we're going to have. Because what are they going to do? What are the bad guys going to do about it? When we all just down tools or just stand there peacefully blocking doors, what are they going to do about it? They don't have the numbers. They don't have the numbers. You need unity. We need unity. And so we need to be reaching out to those within our community that we can have sensible conversations with and start having diplomatic plans made on how we move forward. The minute we unite, it's game over for the bad guys. Don't get me wrong. Illegal immigrants, those taking the piss, those that won't assimilate into our culture or certainly want us to change our culture to suit them. No, no. Everyone else is potentially an ally. And we need to remember that. We're being played. You're being played, boys and girls, because sometimes our skin color is different, so our faith is different, our genders are different. We're being played. So we're on the brink of a bit of a civil war if things continue as they are. Now, please remember, this is what Soros asked for, and all the bad guys want this. We can either let them win, or we can be sensible about it and start planning things outside of them that don't work for them. And I know which route I'd rather take. If you guys would like me to instigate something like this and try and get these conversations open and out there, then please do drop a comment below. I'm more than happy to do that. Um, again, I'm still seeking full-time work, but I'd much rather be doing this. So if you're able to help out in the donations, please do that below, because it's increasingly becoming more difficult. But I also know there's people in far worse position than me, and I have faith that answers will come. Um, but we're reaching a bit of a crescendo. We're reaching a bit of a pinnacle point, and we can see things going on across the world, like this Venezuela thing. Don't ask me to go down that road at the moment. I'm still trying to figure it out because I'm not convinced what we're hearing from either side is the truth. I think this is another potential coup, actually. But then if the Venezuelan people voted in the majority, you've got to go the majority. Majority wins. That's democracy if you're sitting with that. But was it based on truth? Very much like what's happening in countries across the world. We don't know. But yeah, we're seeing people, there's an uprising coming. There's issues growing. The Middle East is looking very, very dubious, very, very rocky. The fact that Israel went in and attacked in Lebanon isn't going to be helping the situation over there. This is all aggravated and it's all done intentionally. This is what you all need to remember. So heat's rising and it's meant to rise. And I think August is going to feel very, very hot on a number of fronts. But I also think the exposing is going to continue. And I think it's going to be picking up pace still. If you look at it every day, there's something new dropping. So it is going to be a race against the clock. But we can either have chaos and anarchy, or we can have a very well managed pushback that is incredibly successful because we're shutting down their ability to function. Shut off their ability to function in a non-violent way. And that comes down to numbers again, like I keep saying, which then comes back to exposure. It is a process, but we need to move a bit faster. Things are starting to heat up. People are starting to get emotional. Do try, hard as it is, and I get it, do try to stay in a cool head if you can. Try and think logically if you can. And always remember, it is the bad guys that want this to happen. They want us turning on each other. The minute that we stop doing that is the minute we win. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that. Unity, it will end everything. So anyway, guys, I'm going to leave that with you. Sorry that was a little bit rambly, but I just wanted to jump on because there are absolutely solutions to dealing with this, but it's getting everyone's ear and getting everyone to think kind of sensibly and calmly about things and understanding who the true enemy is, who's turning us against each other, who's that true enemy. The police aren't doing their job properly, government aren't doing their job properly. What's our answer after that? What does that come down to? What are our rights on that? Anyway, have a good rest of this week. I'm still working on the big podcast. I will be back very soon. Like I said, I've had some procedures and things going on. It's been I've got the final one today, so hopefully by the weekend I'll be fully rested and recovered and I'll be able to just get back into things properly. I will drop the link below. Do help out with donations if you can, because I need to survive. And whilst I'm looking for full-time work, I still want to do this. This is so important to me. And if you guys want me to get involved and start putting out there with more force what those solutions look like and start bringing those groups together, please do let me know. I'm happy to do that. But please do support me financially because it is massively time-consuming. But yeah, those are my thoughts on today. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Have a good week. I'll catch you soon and God bless. Thank you very much.